Well, I didn't know my idol was going to be my idol when I first saw him. Quite the opposite. I was a teenager walking around on the streets of Harvard Square back in the 70s, and there was this madman on the sidewalk. He was wearing all blue clothing, a blue cap. He had ribbons and balloons all over his body and blue butterflies drawn onto the palms of his hands. And he was saying, I have no idea what he was saying. I don't know if it was because of the state I was in when I was a teenager or just because of him. There was something about him that just was like, whoop, nope, don't walk on that side of the street. Let's go over to that sidewalk. I had no idea I was going to be crossing paths with him again. Later on, shortly after I'd graduated college, I moved to Cambridge. And I would walk around the streets and go in the stores, and occasionally I would see this man again with a woman with him also. And I came to learn, if you live in Cambridge or you frequented Cambridge at that point in time, you learned that this man was Brother Blue, a rather well-known storyteller. And he would get out on the streets and tell stories, and he would try to draw people in. And I heard somebody say something very profound one time. They said, on the sidewalks, on the streets, there are no captive audiences, only captivated. And Brother Blue would go out there and ply his craft. And I came to learn that he didn't just do this in the streets. He would do it on stages at major national festivals, in the hallowed halls of academia, but also in mental institutions, in prisons. And in the early 1990s, he and his wife Ruth got this idea that they would have a weekly gathering of storytellers. And Blue, way back in the day, got a doctorate in divinity, and this was going to be his church. People were going to come in, and he could get up there week after week and preach to the already converted. He would preach storytelling to a room full of storytellers. So I was there the very first night this happened. It was at the Bookseller Cafe up in Porter Square, and the room was packed. It was a lot of electricity, and it was quite a night. And I'd come back week after week, and it got to the point where we'd be hearing Blue tell a lot of the same things week after week after week after week. And early on, an interesting thing happened. He started calling me his son. And this seemed a little unlikely to me. I mean, we weren't the same color for starters. And I didn't understand. I mean, it was really pretty cool. You know, here's this living legend. He's calling me his son. But at the same time, it was kind of perplexing. It was like, why me? Not in the Nancy Kerrigan sense, like, why me? You know, but I just, you know, I didn't quite understand exactly why. And so I kind of had this defense mechanism where when he would do, I mean, he wouldn't just go, you know, how are you, son? He would be, when I finished with my preoccupation as a performing storyteller, he would stand up at the back of the room and point over all the heads and go, that's my son! And he'd do this time after time. And so, you know, I'd stand up there and I'd say, oh, somebody must have hopped the fence somewhere. And as I grew to be more accepting, I would start saying things like, can I borrow the keys tonight, Dad? One time I was really ready for him. I was performing with some of my fellow members of the Jewish Storytelling Coalition when Blue got up at the end of my telling a story and jumped up and said, that's my son! Now imagine the people in the theater there. This time I looked out and I said, funny, I don't look bluish. Well, Blue is gone now. He passed away in November of 2009, and you know those stories that we heard week after week after week. Boy, I sure would like to hear him again. And he would tell us all about how to be just in the world and how to get out there and be yourself. And it was a long way, my evolution in my thinking now, to how he first appeared to me as this madman on the sidewalk that I avoided back in the 70s. Thank you.